Dreaming whilst black, Jamaican web series tries to make it big. Weekend Business Report starts right now. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Kenil Gale. Thanks for joining us this week. There's always an appetite for local content, right? So why aren't there more? We'll explore that in a bit, but right now here are some of the top stories BATV News brought you this week. The Bank of Jamaica BOJ is forecasting a modest acceleration in economic growth over the next 2 years. BOJ Governor Brian Winter says that this forecast is supported by optimistic conditions in the U.S. and some of Jamaica's other major trading partners. Governor Winter was speaking at the BOJ's quarterly monetary policy report press briefing in Kingston last Monday. Sashana Small covered for us.
Jamaica's economic growth is projected at 1.5 to 2.5% per quarter. But this, according to the BOJ governor, is below the country's potential.
Inflation pressures from spending in the economy are expected to remain contained, as GDP growth projected at 1.5% to 2.5% per quarter continues to grow at a rate that is below the potential growth rate of the economy. This forecast is supported by buoyant conditions in the United States and in some of Jamaica's other major trading partners. The forecast also assumes that domestic demand will remain restrained by continued fiscal consolidation, and inflation expectations will remain low and anchored at the lower end of the bank's target.
The bank's inflation target is 4 to 6%. However, inflation for the past 3 decades have been below the target.
The most recent information released by Statin indicates that headline inflation at April 2018 was 3.2%. This was materially below the bank's target of 4 to 6%. April's inflation was also lower than the 3.9% at March 2018. And, of course, lower than the 5.2% recorded at December 2017.
Along with GDP growth, the BOJ is forecasting a possible wage inflation as labor conditions continue to improve over the next 2 years.
Labor market conditions are expected to continue to improve over the next 2 years. And that may, at some point, support wage-related inflation in Jamaica if labor productivity does not at the same time improve.
The Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, says Jamaica has recorded favorable results for the first quarter of 2018, which saw the economy growing by 1.2%. The information was released on Tuesday at the PIOJ's quarterly press briefing. Javon Keys has the details.
The preliminary results on Jamaica's macroeconomic performance for the first quarter of 2018 show that the country recorded growth in all industries. Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, Dr. Wayne Henry, says for the January to April period, gross domestic product GDP grew largely due to increased capacity utilization in the mining and quarrying industry, exports, hotel occupancy, and other factors.
We are reporting that real gross domestic product GDP in the Jamaican economy grew by an estimated 1.2% in the January to March 2018 quarter, compared with the corresponding quarter of 2017. This positive outturn for the January to March 2018 period largely reflected the impact of, one, increased external demand from Jamaica's main trading partners, which supported increased exports of some goods and services, particularly tourism. 2, increased hotel room capacity and air seat capacity, which facilitated growth in stopover visitor arrivals. 3, increased capacity utilization, especially in the mining and quarrying and manufacture industries.
The mining and quarrying industry saw the greatest increase of almost 30%. This was influenced mainly by the resumption of the operations at the Alpart refinery. The large increase also greatly impacted the overall GDP increase.
Real value added for the mining and quarrying industry grew by an estimated 25.5%. This was due to an increase in total bauxite production by 28.7%, reflecting higher alumina and crude bauxite production. Alumina production was 27.1% higher, reflecting the resumption of productive activity at the Alpart Alumina Refinery since October to December 2017.
In the meantime, while sectors saw increased growth and the unemployment rate for the period dropped to 9.6%, the lowest since 2007, there was a decline in the overall labor force by 21,200 persons to about 1.3 million persons.
Minister of Finance and the Public Service, Dr. Nigel Clark, is reporting a significant decline in the rate of poverty in Jamaica. In a statement to Parliament on Tuesday, Dr. Clark said poverty fell by 4 percentage points from 21.1% for calendar year 2015 to 17.1% for 2016. Jamila Maitland reports.
The study conducted by the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Statin, captures the living conditions of Jamaicans. Minister Clark said the most recent available data shows that Jamaica's poverty rate is now at the lowest since 2009.
Poverty in an absolute sense declined from 21.2% for calendar year 2015 to 17.1% in calendar year 2016, a fall of 4 percentage points, which represents a 19% drop in the incidence of poverty, the largest annual reduction in 10 years.
He said the declining poverty rate is as a result of improved socioeconomic standards in Jamaica.
These declines in poverty are consistent with rise in employment, which Jamaica has been enjoying. Over 40,000 jobs have been created in the last 2 years. It is consistent with low inflation that Jamaica has been enjoying for, thankfully, a good period of time. And it is consistent with the sharp growth in agricultural output in 2016 over 2015, a jump of 12%.
Meanwhile, opposition spokesperson on finance, Mark Golding, noted that he's happy to see a downward trend in poverty. This, he argued, was a testament of the continuity of good policy and a sound fiscal program inherited by the Andrew Holness-led administration.
We feel a sense of ownership of that data on this side, and we're happy to hear that is the fruits of significant sacrifice on the part of the country over the 4 years of our government leading into February 2016 is reflected indeed in the data that you have presented today, and we look forward to further improvements. And when you next report on 2017, we hope to see those numbers even better.
But Dr. Clark argued that there was a spike in the poverty rate in 2015, long before the government was formed.
Poverty actually went up in 2015. So the fact that it has come down for the calendar year 2016, of which this government held the reins, is significant, and it's something that we want to support. Now, at the end of the day, when all is counted, what matters are people's lives.
Moving on now, in the world of media, content is king. So why are locals so embracing of a foreign king and not as quick to support their own? Those are just some of the questions being asked by the producers and promoters behind the web series Dreaming Whilst Black. Dreaming Whilst Black is a 9-part web series which follows a young, passionate yet naive filmmaker who struggles to navigate between his dreams and reality. The creators describe the production as a farcical analogy of what it takes for different races and genders to make it in the film industry. It's a series the producers and promoters are hoping will start a bigger conversation that will inspire a generation to follow their dreams. But getting the series to this point wasn't easy.
About a year ago, he showed me the first trailer, and I said, I want a piece of it. I mean, I want to make sure that Jamaica see the kind of quality that can come out of Jamaica if we're given the right chance to grow. And we worked out the details very sparingly, meaning we just said, we're gonna come on board, how much money you need, we'll raise the money, and that's how we are right now.
Creating a buzz around the effort wasn't that difficult, and before long, the team was putting together a multi-city premiere.
Everybody came together and said, what's the biggest impact that we can have? And we realized that people were just willing to, people in Amsterdam, people in Shanghai were willing to help out. Just we could send them the stuff, they would plan everything, we would give them some support on the marketing side, and so we just did it, simultaneous release. And for a production of that scale, to do something that was 5-6 different countries at the same time, it showed that investment is warranted because people actually came out to all of these premieres and everybody enjoyed it.
The Muse 360 managing director argued that local investors are usually hesitant to throw money behind creative projects because they fail to see the potential return on investment.
The return on investment is hard to see from somebody who understands that land is investment, assets, stuff like that. I mean, we are just getting to the point where IP is considered an investable commodity. So people aren't going to wait 3 years to see the return on something that they invested in now, especially if they can't come back to claim something on. So if you go to a bank is going to say, so what's your collateral? It has to, so we found out that investment has to start with people that understand and believe in it. So we do a lot of work on the commercial side. Muse 360 has clients that are pretty large, and that allows us to basically make money off of the brands that we do and then get creatives in a space where they feel comfortable to create. So essentially we make the money on one side and we invest it back into the community so that the brands can benefit because the creatives feel better. Creatives feel better when they're given the freedom to work. So I find that we're never going to have, well, not in my lifetime anyway, banks just getting up and just giving people money to make productions. So it has to start with us. So if we, the creatives, start making enough money to reinvest back in ourselves, I think that's the only way it's going to progress. So that's why we got up and we gave the money and we said we're gonna market it as best as we can. It hasn't blown up the way that we want it to yet, but we know that it's gonna blow up. So that's a part of the risk on our side.
With 9 completed episodes available on YouTube for season 1, the team is trying to get more views in a bid to create more jobs for local talent.
Season 2 is on its way. So what we're trying to broker is to shoot at least a quarter of the episodes in Jamaica, using Jamaican talent, Jamaican technical staff, and that will actually give us more of a standing to say, see, we're actually reinvesting back in Jamaica. So call season 1 a case study. It's to prove that we can make something that people look at us and say, what did you guys shoot that with? Was it a red camera? We say, shh, we're not telling anybody what we shot it on. The thing is, the technical staff make everything better.
The team is also in discussions to snag a distribution deal with hopes of possibly landing the series on Netflix.
Is the Netflix dream still up there?
Has to be. But we're speaking to a number of different distributors. So even in England, we had an initial discussion with BBC 4, I think, or 3, I can't remember right now. But the initial discussion was, if you reach a certain amount of views, we'll lend support. So what we're trying to do right now is drumming up views for season 1 so that we have a better case to present to say, hey guys, this is an actual business that we can make some money out of.
The hope is that Dreaming Whilst Black will inspire a new generation of filmmakers.
Even though it's called Dreaming Whilst Black, a lot of the production crew, I think 2 of them are actually white. One is Indian, one is black. And then you find that everybody have their own struggles. So even though it's hinged on the black experience, it could apply to the Indian experience, the Pakistani experience. It's just the minorities who need a platform to express themselves. So I like that Dear White People takes a very poignant stance on discussing this stuff. That's what we want to do. The platform might not be Dreaming Whilst Black, but it might be something else that we invest in. So at each turn, we have to give people a voice, and that's what we're trying to do.
If you haven't seen the series yet, Andre Burnett is encouraging you to check it out and help them reach their goal.
It's on YouTube. Just type in Dreaming Whilst Black. Once you type in dreaming, it will come up. There are 9 episodes. I guarantee you it will be entertaining. It's not for kids, please. 18 and over, please. But give us some views, man.
Company news comes up next, then later volcano fury, thousands dislocated and acres burnt as lava makes its way to the sea. More WBR after this break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. CPJ expands, Red Stripe faces off with Budweiser, and the JetCon's revenue grows. Here's Javon Keys with this week's company news.
Caribbean Producers Jamaica Limited (CPJ) says its board has approved the proposal to invest in the further expansion of the company's distribution capacity. This will be done through a build-out of a multipurpose warehouse being currently constructed in Montego Bay Freeport on a proposed leased property. CPJ says the investment of US $2.5 million will allow the company to improve the efficiency of its cold chain as well as to handle the anticipated growth in sales. A standoff may be brewing between Jamaica's Red Stripe beer and Budweiser. This after Budweiser recently released a new beer that Red Stripe says imitates the iconic Jamaican lager. In a statement to the media, Red Stripe says it is flattered by the fact that another international brand has decided to imitate the great Jamaican beer by using its stubby bottle. The beer company pointed out that the 90-year-old lager has been using the iconic bottle since 1972, and the brew and the bottle have become synonymous with Jamaican pride. Red Stripe says the move by Budweiser is a clear indication that the local beer giant is indeed a global brand worthy of imitation. JetCon Corporation dealers of pre-owned cars enjoyed another quarter of growth in revenues and profit for the first quarter of this year compared with the similar quarter in 2017. JetCon says the good performance during the January to March 2018 quarter continues the improvement experienced over the last 2 years. The company says it is now seeing more even quarterly sales than in past years with its increased inventory in vehicles. However, JetCon points out that the implementation of the pre-inspection initiative for the importation of all used cars recently imposed by the government has lengthened the delivery time of vehicles by a few weeks, but no adverse effects on sales are expected, as many delays in shipment is covered by current levels of inventory.
Thanks, Javon. Let's now take a look at the closing numbers from the major stock markets around the world. When we come back, more of the top news stories BOTV brought you this week, so stay with us. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. More news now. Opposition spokesman on information and technology, Julian Robinson, is urging the government to update the Patent Act to monetize the application of ideas. Mr. Robinson says updating the act will help the economy benefit from scientific inventions and increase the country's chances of attracting more investors.
Julian Robinson says the legislation that governs how patents work in Jamaica is outdated and needs to be changed. He argues that an update of the 150-year-old law should include an increase in patent fees.
The fees for patent applications and maintenance are specified within the Act. These nominal amounts have not moved with inflation or changes in the value of our currency over these years. This means that practically it costs more to send a letter today than it does to file a patent application with JIPO. Patent fees, importantly, are supposed to support the operations of the patenting process. including paying the fees of examiners, which is a highly specialized job. Clearly, today's fees cannot do this, which means that our patent management essentially costs the government more to administer than it earns. This is one way that any patent activity in Jamaica fails to have any significant macroeconomic impact.
He says Jamaica isn't attracting potential serious investors because the country is not a signatory to the Patent Cooperation Treaty that allows patents to be valid in other countries.
Under the Patent Cooperation Treaty, a patent can be examined under a kind of one-stop shop system that reduces the cost of examination and filing in several countries. Jamaica is not currently a signatory to this Patent Cooperation Treaty, but for example, Trinidad is. And as such, Jamaican inventors cannot take advantage of this filing system. In fact, in some instances, we have Jamaican entrepreneurs who actually go to Trinidad to file a patent application in order to take advantage of the availability of the Patent Cooperation Treaty system. This sort of practice, Mr. Speaker, leads to low measures of innovation in Jamaica, which makes it more difficult to attract serious investors.
The 138 student living housing solutions have arguably been one of the most controversial student accommodation on the University of the West Indies Mona campus. Architect of the public-private partnership, which facilitated the construction of the complexes, Professor Archibald MacDonald, says the investors have breached the agreement more than once.
Professor MacDonald says 138 Student Living is responsible for the management of the facility and not the students, a boundary that is often crossed by the investors.
138 is not there to manage student affairs.
Yes.
We have the Office of Student Development to manage student affairs. So the management of the students in 138 facilities should be the same as the management of the students in the other halls, because we don't want 138 to manage our students. We don't want 138 to discipline our students, and that's written in the agreement.
He explains the ownership status of the facility as outlined in the agreement.
It's not a lease, it's a concession agreement. That's what it is, not a lease. They have not leased the land from the University of the West Indies. So they invest, and their money is used to construct the facilities. But the buildings are owned by the University of the West Indies, and they are allowed to manage the facilities until they get the return, the expected return on their investment.
He says this will take up to 20 years. Meanwhile, Professor MacDonald admits that he is aware that 138 has, on several occasions, locked students out of the facility for unpaid fees, another breach in their agreement.
138 ought not to be locking students out of their rooms. And the senior management of the campus is very firm with that. It has happened, let me admit, from time to time, because of the weakness in the management structure that we have in place. But I say emphatically that the management of the Mona campus and the principal we do not want 138 to lock students out of the room.
That is why, he says, the campus has created a management committee strictly for overseeing public-private partnerships.
Labor Day activities across the island last Wednesday focused on providing physical access to buildings for members of the disabled community. This year's theme was Ramp It Up, Fix It Up, and over 126 ramps were installed in schools across the island. In his Labor Day message, Prime Minister Andrew Holness said this is part of the government's mandate to provide equal opportunities for all Jamaicans. Sashana Small reports.
This Labor Day, we'll be placing special emphasis on our brothers and sisters who may be living with various mobility disabilities and challenges. As a nation, we must ensure that no one is excluded because of inadequate facilities to support their mobility.
The Prime Minister said that focus was also placed on providing access to healthcare centers across Jamaica. He used the opportunity to highlight the government's economic policies, which he noted is geared towards improving the standard of living for all Jamaicans. He said Jamaica is on its way to becoming economically independent because of the recent decrease in the unemployment rate.
We are encouraged by the improved employment figures. More Jamaicans are now employed than any other time in our history. giving our people a real chance at their economic independence, a real chance to step up in life. The unemployment rate has fallen from 13.7% in April 2016 to 9.6% as at January 2018. Of note, the youth unemployment rate declined, moving from 31.2% in January 2017 to 23.8% in January 2018, representing a decrease of 7.4 percentage points.
Meanwhile, opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips, in his Labor Day address, called on the government to put an end to employers using independent contractors because these workers are oftentimes denied certain rights.
We must put an end to the fiction of designating workers as independent contractors, which is gaining traction in some industries. This device often denies workers in the various industries, including security guards, their right to collective bargaining and to the benefits that provides.
He also called for pension payments and minimum wage to be aligned with the cost of living.
When we come back, nature's fury unleashed in Hawaii. More WBR after the break. Welcome back to Weekend Business Report. Rivers of slow-moving molten rock reached the ocean in Hawaii last weekend. The reaction is creating a toxic, corrosive gas that can spread for miles. That comes as the eruptions caused their first major injury. Here's more.
Take a look. That's molten lava doing an angry dance behind me. How hot is it? That lava is around 2,000 degrees. Geologists here call this Fissure 20. And the lava that is poured relentlessly from it for days needs some place to go. We found the endpoint. This is what officials here have warned about for days. Swift-moving molten rock from the Kilauea volcano that has finally run out of room. You're looking at a river of lava spill into the Pacific Ocean. It came from Fissure 20, one of the most dynamic, racing as quickly as a half mile an hour before ending here at the water's edge. The resulting steam cloud is called laze, a mix of lava and haze. It's laced with hydrochloric acid, which is toxic and burns on contact. Officials warn the cloud could extend 15 miles. Meanwhile, fissures spew more lava into neighborhoods like Leilani Estates, where some are still defying evacuation orders.
I have no fear for not getting out if something catastrophic could happen, but I don't believe anything catastrophic will happen.
Looks pretty catastrophic behind you.
Well, but I'm saying though, right now, it wouldn't blow up and cause us to be running down the road. It would be real slow.
But another holdout in Leilani Estates was hit by lava spatter that shattered his shin. These aerials show the scope of molten rock pouring from active fissures. One flow crossed Highway 137 over the weekend, a lava mountain 30 feet high. Geologist Carolyn Parchetta.
I think we're moving into phase 2, and that's where we're going to see increased activity, potentially higher fountains, more lava flows, much more dynamic situation than before.
Because of the dangers of flying lava, we're trying to keep a safe distance from this fissure, about a half mile, just as we did on our boat trip to watch the lava pour into the Pacific. There, too, officials say that lava shows no sign of slowing.
And that's our show for this week. On behalf of the entire Weekend Business Report team, I'm Keneal. See you next time.